Manga, manga, and more manga. I read a lot of it in my spare time, and by spare time, I mean at work. So much so that I decided to say, hey, screw it, let's see if any of these are worth your time. And with time in mind, I'm not going to waste any of yours. Let's see if this manga is for you in 10 minutes or less. Red Blue is a manga illustrated and written by Atsushi Namikiri, which began publishing in Shonen Sunday on January 12, 2022, and as of this recording, has 22 chapters. The story follows Aoba Suzuki, a wimpy kid who really has nothing in his life besides shambling along aimlessly. That changes one day when he is quote-unquote saved by Kenshin Akasawa, a rising star in the MMA world. When Kenshin tells Aoba that he's an empty husk of a person, Aoba decides then and there to join MMA. For what reason? Solely to beat the ever-loving shit out of Kenshin and embarrass him in front of everybody. His school, his family, everyone. And that is the story up till now. Starting off with the characters, we have Aoba. And I have to be honest, I feel a bit mixed with this character. In some ways, I find myself interested in the kid, but in others, I get the feeling of wanting this kid to fail. He's not unlikable, but he isn't exactly likable either. His motivation, while wholly selfish, isn't one that I think is unrealistic or even really bad. It's a motivation, I guess. However, I think while reading it, I do find myself conflicted of whether or not I'm actually interested in seeing how he grows as a person. Don't get me wrong, the manga does show his growth in MMA very consistently, but I still don't have an exact grasp of who he is. Is that me judging the manga too harshly from 22 chapters? Well, maybe. But right now I find myself asking, well, we know his goal, but what's his personality? Who is Aoba Suzuki? And I think after 22 chapters, we should know a little bit more about him. And all I get is a kid who's just rather vindictive for no real reason, other than he just doesn't like a guy. Again, there could be more development with him down the line, but as of right now, he feels rather flat. Going on to the secondary character, or protagonist, even though he's more of an antagonist, Kenshin. It's quite strange that many places name Kenshin as the secondary protagonist in the story, when so far he's not really in it that often, if at all. He doesn't work out at the same gym as Aoba, and as of now has only had one real interaction with Aoba post-MMA career choice. All we know is that he's spunky, has a bright future ahead, and everyone seems to love him. He's a typical shonen protagonist, being seen through the rival's eyes. And don't get me wrong, I think the dynamic of a manga from a rival's point of view can work, but the issue is we're being told nothing about the rival we should root for, other than he wants to beat up the shonen protagonist. But the issue is we're not being told anything about the rival, why we should root for him, why we want him to beat the shonen protagonist. You need a bit more than just saying he made him uncomfortable once. And you need a bit more to tell us why we should root against the shonen protagonist to begin with. We don't really see anything. And don't get me wrong, an idea of having a protagonist be the villain or being a bad person is not out of the realm of possibility or even something new to manga. If I'm going to use a very extreme example, take a look at Shamo. Ryo in that manga is not a good person, but he is our protagonist who we're seeing go through the journey. And we want to because, again, we don't necessarily like him, we don't necessarily agree with his methods or who he is as a person, but he's interesting enough as a character that we want to see where he ends up. I don't really feel that from Aoba at this point. And again, maybe that is me just judging a little too harshly from 22 chapters. But by this point, a lot of manga have already established what your main character is like. If we want to take another manga that has to do with revenge, let's take Jujika no Rokunin. That manga established exactly what his character was from the beginning. And we got it. We understood. Again, we may not agree with what he's doing, but we still understand, and it makes an interesting character to want to follow where he goes from there. With Aoba, again, I don't feel that. And maybe it will change, but as of right now, I'm not liking it too much. The art in the manga itself is pretty good, though. I find myself really enjoying it, and it actually really does add some very raised looks for some of the characters while they're fighting. It almost has that sense of killing intent when they look at you. And that also goes double for when they're actually fighting. I actually love a lot of the fight choreography, and as someone who has done MMA, it's actually pretty fun to look at. It's actually fun to see how some of the stuff is described. And if you're into MMA at all, or even interested in getting into it, some of the stuff here is bare bones and basic, but it is a fun read, and it's fun to see the pictures of the action. So in that front, I do think it's fine. Overall though, Red Blue at this point is a mixed bag. The art's great, the pacing isn't bad per se, at least with the action, but I find myself really not attaching myself to any of the characters. Even the side characters aren't exactly interesting, they're just there. Again, maybe it is just me not agreeing or even not really attaching to this 22 chapters in, but again, I feel that 22 chapters should be more than enough, especially in a weekly manga, for you to establish who these people are and why I should care. Or, in fact, why I should not like the antagonist. I don't know, maybe my mind will change as we go along, but as of now, I can't find myself recommending this manga. Give it maybe to chapter 50 and my mind might change, but right now, no. And that is time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much again for coming down and watching another video of mine. If you like what you saw, please do like, comment, subscribe. I will see you for another manga in 10 minutes or less. Bye-bye.